Welcome back to another episode of A Life Partner TV. I am your host, Dr. Mario Torres Leon. And today is actually an incredibly important day in the HPS series, in the Human Power series. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart because, as many of you know, I am a classically trained physician. I'm a Harvard, Yale, and Columbia trained radiologist with multiple subspecialties. And as you've heard me say before, I'm not saying that to impress anybody, but just to showcase the fact that my life has kind of been a very interesting mix of having this very traditional path and then over the past 38 years of being exposed to many different things, of which medicine has been at the central core of much of that. It has also been blessed with many pathways that have nothing to do with traditional medicine and have taken me through journeys that are simply amazing. If you're new to this community, welcome to being here. And if you like this content, please share it with other people because, as I like to say every single time, you may be the person who's a catalyst in somebody else's life for them to have healing, transformation, breakthroughs, or as I like to call them, miracles, things that we can't understand by conventional wisdom, that our senses are clearly convinced that you're witnessing. Today is very special because I have a very esteemed community member of our last cycle of the 28-day gratitude launchpad. And what makes her special, besides the fact that she's a woman, and you've referred me before, I said that women are the spiritual leaders of the planet. Sorry, guys, we're listening to this until we stand up to the plate. I'll continue to say that. But her journey is actually, in some regards, similar to mine because she's a allopathically trained physician, Dr. Aarti Soorya, and I will let her speak a little bit about her background and what she does. But she also has had an interesting journey in her life, very much like I discover other things that have brought me to where I'm at now, which have also challenged her and have also brought tremendous gifts to her journey of awareness that now she brings in and incorporates into what she does in the way that she practices healthcare. So, Aarti, thank you. Thank you for being here. What an honor to have you as a colleague, as a friend, as somebody who is a community member here in the Alive Partner community. So, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for putting together such a beautiful 28-day journey for gratitude. My journey, like you said, was similar to yours. I'm trained in the allopathic world. And, I had the inkling that there was an attraction to, my ancestral stuff with yoga and meditation. From a very young age, I think the first memory I have is in college, like 2021. And there's this like fascination with meditation, but I didn't do it. It was just like, oh, you can like change your brain waves and that can have a huge impact on health. But I didn't do it. I was just like, oh, that's nice. But here's the right path. Like, here's what you do in culture. And this is what's going to make you successful and set you up for a, stress-free life. And so I chose the traditional allopathic route. And then, my last year of residency, I was like, ah, there's something missing here. We're really not treating the whole person. So then I went on to do additional training in functional medicine. And, it's pretty geeky, like with a lot of biochemistry. And initially, I think from the mind perspective, was like, wow, that's so cool. You can test all this stuff and then figure things out, but then that fell short as well. And so, it's led me really back to the journey of how do you actually look at someone as a whole, and has led me down, into training into yoga nidra, which is a beautiful meditation practice that comes from the yogic philosophy. And now I'm on that path to kind of putting something together for my patients and community to just really explore that. And part of the journey has been, with some rough patches.
Yes.
Trying to do your own thing in medicine is hard when you don't have a mentor or a guide. And, a lot of the mistakes you make, that is where wisdom comes from. But I mean, they hurt. Those mistakes were really rough on me. And so, along this path, I did find myself pretty negative and like I'm working so hard and I'm not getting anywhere and this sucks. Like I thought I was doing the right thing in medicine and it's led me to, feeling very depleted and which led me to yoga nidra, which then started to shift my journey. But then, I was still like very still stuck in some ways. And that's kind of where the 28-day journey came about. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I felt very attracted to your energy. It was just very safe and calm and inviting. So I was like, let me do this.
Well, that's extremely kind. I for all of you who are watching right now, what Aarti is sharing, um, I'm gonna try to get vulnerable just like she just did because it's really poignant to this conversation. Um, the world of medicine, which has done so much for so many, and I am so grateful for it, has a very particular path when it comes to the education and the rigidity of it, the structure of it. While it's very advantageous for many of the things that we do, um, it essentially excludes many other things that are practiced, experienced by many others in other cultures and countries across the globe. And as we're speaking in this conversation, we're speaking from the United States, and our medicine has very particular ways of being practiced, being exercised, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Um, but one of the things that is ingrained in us as physicians who are classically trained, what we call the allopathic world, is this aspect of perfection and not making any mistakes. And I clearly was the poster child in many regards because of my background for that kind of physician and uh, being extremely reluctant to admit my imperfections and to embrace my shortcomings.
Mhm.
And while that seemingly supported me in achieving certain things, it was leaving voids in many other areas that I had awareness that simply required a different kind of approach and a different kind of way of being.
Mhm.
And just like you, that created for me tremendous friction. And when
Mhm.
we experience friction in our lives, as I like to talk in my community, there is a tremendous loss of energy. And
Yeah.
energy is that essential component that lives within every single one of us that allows us to really generate magnificence in our lives and hopefully in the lives of the people around us.
Mhm.
Um, so I have a tremendous respect um, when I come across colleagues who are willing to call these things out. And what happens or ends up happening as we embark in this journey of exploring more of surrender, of humility, of amplifying our degree of awareness is that our perspectives change dramatically. And for all of you who are out there who perhaps have been in the wave of being very sensitive to what the allopathic world, the traditional medical side, is not doing or has not done for you in your healing journey, I want to reiterate something very important, which is all of us who have come to this side of the healing process of healthcare as allopathically trained physicians, like my guest and myself today, when we start this journey, we deeply care about humanity.
Mhm.
We put ourselves through this educational journey not only for the prospect of having a great life, which could be defined as many ways. We tend to think of it as financially having the stability to have those things that you desire to have. But
Mhm.
truthfully, the driving force for so many years of training, in my case, 15 years, in your case, probably over a decade as well, especially with all the things you've done after the
Mhm.
basic medical education, is a tremendous degree of commitment for really
Mhm.
being philanthropist, uh,
Mhm.
which is to be friends of humanity, lovers of humanity. Can you speak to that, Arti?
That's beautiful. When you're saying friends of humanity, even I feel defensive of actually people who knock down the allopathic world, even though I'm like critical of it, because I'm like, the doctors in it are trying to do their best. The structure of the system is also not really supporting them. So, it's easy to say, my doctor didn't do this, my doctor didn't do that. They dismissed my symptoms, they did this, and they're not really taking care of me. But on the other flip side, it's like, the structure of it is that they're under a tremendous amount of pressure to see a certain amount of patients a day. Yes, they're only allocated maybe 15 minutes. They're always going over because they do care, but it's like they do have to make it through their day. And then oftentimes at home, they're doing notes. So it's like, as much as, I'm critical of it also, like, but I also have a lot of empathy because I'm like, I get it. Like anybody under that survival state is going to, they want a life too. And they're trying to do their best as well.
No, no question about that. And
Yeah.
this is really an important thing that we address in different ways inside of the Alive Partner community and the different experiential courses that I have created and conducted. When we enter a state of fighting something outside of us,
Hmm.
and not because necessarily we want to be in a state of fight, it creates, and this is something that is very germane to your world, and I want you to speak about this, a very different neurochemical, neuroendocrinological state.
Hmm.
Those may seem like really big words, and all it means is the chemistry that gets generated inside every single one of us as we react to any particular situation or stimulus in the outside. There's a
Hmm.
deep connection of how we experience that thing that we're seeing or being part of, how the body is reacting internally to it. We are, I like to call human beings, we're walking pharmacies.
Yes.
We are
Yeah.
chemical factories,
Yeah.
most sophisticated ones that we know. And when we embrace any particular situation with this aspect of fighting, it creates more of what we don't want,
Yeah.
and it's very painful. And when any particular profession that has required a long time to get to the point of saying, I have become this,
Hmm.
is faced with something that is not what you want or you would have hoped for that to be, it's very difficult to disarticulate the identity of who you have become, where you think you have become because of that path,
Hmm.
and what life is actually calling you to be,
Yeah.
because your soul, your heart, however we want to call it, is, has this incredible gravitational pull in a different direction.
Yeah.
And now you're finding yourself like between two walls and you don't know which one to take. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that? Because I'm sure, I know so that in your case, this is something that resonates with you.
100%. So when I decided to do the functional medicine training, I thought, oh my gosh, I found it. I found the path. This is great. Like everything's going to fall into place. And I didn't expect that I would still be in fight mode. And so for that, like, it's a significant investment to do the training. And then on top of working, and I felt like I was utterly disappointed when I entered into clinical practice to finally do functional medicine. I had joined a clinic and I thought, I'd learn from the senior physician there. Great. I will learn how to apply it clinically, and then I'll be in my holistic world doing my thing. And I did not expect that I would be like, this is it. Like, this is holistic medicine. Like, and what I was disappointed with was that I just felt like the soul, the person's spirit, what is happening in their life was totally disregarded. And we were only, again, kind of treating just biochemistry. And it
Mhm.
was like, this doesn't make sense to me. But deep down, I was like, I know there's something more. I just don't know what. But then there was a part of me that was also in freeze mode of like the nervous system, where I was overwhelmed with being in this environment that was so new, a new field. I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought everything was going to magically come into place. And it was the total opposite, where I was shutting down. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what happened to my life? Like I was totally, and my identity was so built around, I'm this holistic doctor now. And I felt like I was failing because I was like, I couldn't get myself to be in alignment. How, like, and I wasn't really seeing any of this move the needle for patients. Like, yeah, of course, you take some supplements, it's going to help you feel a little bit better, but it's really not the root of what I felt like was going on with me and what I saw with patients.
I want to showcase for everybody watching this video something that Aarti has articulated in such brilliant way, and it really triggered emotions for me as she was saying this. This question of, is this it?
Yeah.
Is it? This is a very powerful question. I remember vividly the year 2013 was the first time that I stepped away from being a full-time radiologist. And um, when that happened, I didn't have any plan to actually go back to do any radiology in any capacity. The first 2 weeks, I felt so great. I was so relieved. I was not in the hospital. I really needed a break. I was operating 70 to 80% of my time. I've done thousands of procedures in my career, and I definitely needed that as a vacation. But then the third week came, and I had never had a 3 week vacation in my life. And somewhere in the first half of the third week, I started to feel depressed.
Mhm.
For those who know me, I am the poster child for anti-depression because I am typically a very upbeat person, not because of the
Right.
work that I do now. It's just
Yeah.
the way my personality is.
Yeah.
And there was nobody around to say, yes, doctor, no, doctor, yes, doctor, we'll do this and this and that and bring the patient. And all of this team, which was amazing, surrounding me and all of us supporting to take care of other people. So my identity was being challenged, and I was definitely starting to enter this tunnel, this black tunnel, as I was experiencing of identity crisis,
Yeah.
right? Because everything that I had done up to that point was to have all these diplomas on the wall, and I became the paper on the wall,
Mhm.
and I was extremely identified with it. The
Mhm.
moment that I didn't have all this infrastructure around me to serve my ego
Right. Yeah.
and like how awesome you are, and I
Yeah.
was just another person with none
Yeah.
of that around me, I had simply, it was like losing myself.
Mhm.
Okay. So when we hear physicians, for all of you watching this, talk like this, and to really have the courage to even embrace that and own it, for me, it's probably a lot easier than it is for you right now, because I have been at it for a long time. But I have a lot of compassion and a lot of respect, deep respect
Thank you.
for colleagues that have had the humbleness to and the awareness to identify this
Mhm.
and to really put a name to the struggle because it's real. And not only that, to have this full circle of returning once again to the essence of why is it that we embarked on this journey that has been so costly in so many fronts, so many investments in so many fronts. It's really something. Another image that came to my awareness as you were talking, and you were talking about, for example, the aspect of functional medicine and managing the biochemistry of somebody as supposed to really going into the root cause of really what's here and really seeing the totality of the being, the human in front of you that is trusting that whatever you're going to do is going to be in benefit of their support and supporting their life's journey and their health.
Mhm.
There was this image of all of us can actually picture going to a park and seeing little children follow a little flock of pigeons in the park that are just like eating from the ground, maybe somebody threw some corn or some grain or something. They're all going nuts. And now the kids say, I know I was one of them, my son who was 7, Daddy, I'm going to go and I'm going to grab one of the pigeons, right? And here we are just being very cautious, just like we're doing all this analysis
Yeah.
and looking at the lab work and taking all diligent notes to understand the history of the patient. And we're just walking our path. And then when we think we have it, we run quickly and I'm going to give you this thing and everything is going to go perfectly fine and you're going to be healed. And suddenly all the flock disperses and you end up with nothing in your hands.
Mhm.
But meanwhile, you thought you had it.
Totally.
So very often we find ourselves chasing things without really seeing the whole thing. It's like, you know what? Those birds have been around for however long, millions of years perhaps. They
Yeah.
have developed very, very intricate ways of protecting themselves and
Yeah.
escaping little 7-year-olds who are trying to chase them and grab them, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
meanwhile, we have come to believe that that's all there is and we can actually chase them and find them.
You're right.
But what I find more powerful than that image, Artin, I would like to invite you to share about this. You come into the Ally Partner community you hear through somebody, I'm not exactly sure how you heard for the first time about the 28-day gratitude launchpad, GL28.
Mhm.
Talk to us about finding that, and what did you think, or what conclusions were you in about
Uh-huh.
what that thing was going to be? Because it's always very interesting to see how people arrive at this, and then what they thought of it, and then really what happens.
Yeah, yeah. So I heard about it through Dr. Kim's community,
Okay.
and I was like, yeah, like because I've tried doing gratitude before. And I feel like before I started the journey, I felt like I was doing pretty well. Like, I feel like, in general, my mood's been good and I've been working at this for a while and all that. But gratitude, I couldn't like consistently do it. And so I was like, okay, it'll be helpful to have a structure to this and a community and all that. But it was like it was way better than I thought it was going to be. Because one, the community is so supportive
Yeah.
and safe, and it's like-minded people coming together. So already I felt like just the comfort level was there. And I just was so touched and so like, I just felt like it was so beautiful that people all around the world who have never met can come together and be on this journey together. Like that to me, like testament to, you putting this together, it's your energy that's driving it. And I just was like, wow, like this is so great. And then the reason why I felt like it was way better than I expected, because people will be like, "Yeah, just write down what you're grateful for," and it's kind of like a blind assignment, like that you can kind of do. And like on the healing journey that I've been on, I've done a lot of things, where I wouldn't actually feel into it. Like we're physicians and we're used to doing and like getting things done, and but not really necessarily integrating. And I
See.
always have felt like that's been my issue is like actually being with it. And
Mm.
so for me, what was helpful was, okay, yeah, write down what you're grateful for, but then why? So it makes you slow down because I'm used to going a lot faster in life. So slowing down. And then on this healing journey of mine that I've been on, I was always like asked to be like, where do you feel the fear or where do you feel it in your body? Great, that's fine. That's building attunement into the body. But what I didn't realize was like, I don't know where I feel joy. Like because I had no idea because I'd been so concentrating on where's the anger, where's the fear, where's the negative emotion. But until I did this journey, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even like, I didn't even think to think, where did I feel joy? Because I had been so in fight or flight for so long because I'm trying to figure out this journey in medicine that's outside. So it's like, oh, I gotta survive, right? And so that had been the good chunk of time that was going on for me. But then I was like, oh gosh, I don't even know.
This is very, very powerful and incredibly insightful. Thank you. For all of you watching what Aarti just shared with us, this is a really important distinction of the work that we do in the Ally Partner community. One of the biggest, most remarkable awarenesses that I have had to this point, I don't like to say I invented or created this because all of this intelligence is way older than my chronological age and it's floating around us. And I think it would be so arrogant to say, well, I came up with this idea or this and that. I just don't subscribe to that. Um, but one of the awarenesses that I had some years back in a meditation of mine was the fact that every single human being, just like we have fingerprints that are very unique to us, in our fingers and so on, there is a very specific emotional printing, feelings printing in our bodies. When I first started to become aware of that, I needed to have some validation and start really digging into this and contemplate it deeper, in a deeper way, to find out if this was just unique to me or if this was just something that was universal to every human being that I could actually come across in touch with. And what I started to discover is that while there are universal emotions, you said the word anger and joy, for example, to
Hmm.
all of us, what is not necessarily universally replicable, we cannot duplicate it, is that the place, the physical place where that sensation gets experienced anatomically may not and typically is not the same between two individuals.
Hmm.
So if I were to take 10 people in the room and expose them to something that creates joy in them, and I quickly were to follow that exercise with tuning into where every single one of those 10 people is feeling anatomically the joy, whether it's the forehead, is it in my left ear, is it in my left shoulder, wherever the case may be, there may be maybe two or three people, depending on the particular emotion, maybe more, where they will have roughly the same anatomical part experiencing what they are um, interpreting as that particular emotion or feeling, whether joy, anger, coldness, whatever the case may be. But what is really remarkable is not that there may be a percentage of people that may have the same anatomical area experiencing that particular emotion, but it's the fact that every single person has a map that is unique to them. And when
Hmm.
you get to experience these emotions, very typically, a great percentage of the emotion, that the main component of the emotion, goes always to the same place.
Hmm.
So, and for those of you, it's like, well, how is that really useful? Right? It's like people want to tell me more. Like, how is that going to do anything for me? Well, it's extremely powerful because we have been living in the era of the brain since the age of the Enlightenment, going back to the 19th century, and we're still revering Aarti, you're such a genius. Oh my gosh, you have
Hmm.
an IQ that is unbelievable. We are
Hmm.
revering the brain, but we're living from here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's this incredible thing called the human body that is
Yeah.
covered,
Yeah.
as I'm going to invite you to speak to, about with neurons, which are
Yeah.
called the most sophisticated radars that we know in the universe until something else comes and shows us otherwise.
Right. Right.
Um, and we are not really taken into account. And why is it important? Because when all of this is really sensing the experience that I'm having of life, it can inform the brain in a different way so the two of them can work synergistically
Yes.
so that we can arrive at better decisions,
Yes.
increase our level of awareness, have new things come in that may really impact and empower our healing journeys.
Hmm.
Decisions that we make that have nothing to do with healing could be just being leaders in our professional,
Hmm.
side of life and so on. When that started to really come in, that really changed the game for me, as I was
Hmm.
also already incorporating the aspect of gratitude and elevating it to the level that we have, to the point, as you have heard me say many times now, gratitude plus feeling
Yes.
equals healing. Can I invite you to speak to that from your neurological and background and the things you do? Because this is a game changer for your practice. I know because we've talked about it, but I want the
Yeah.
audience to really hear it from the expert, and that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I would love to. So, you mentioned the brain, and a big connection between the brain and the body is the vagus nerve. And it gets a lot of attention, and it's the one nerve that literally innervates, comes from the brainstem and innervates most of your organs. And what people don't know is that 20% of the vagus nerve travels from the brain to the body, 80% travels from the body to the brain. So it is constantly sensing way more below our level of mind, like, subconsciously, all of what's happening in the environment. But what we've done in our culture is that like you said, we've made it all about the brain and not about the body. And we've totally, the language of the body is actually guiding you through life if
Exactly.
you're tuned in. And I was someone who was very tuned out for most of my life because it was, culturally and everything, you kind of do what your elders tell you. You don't really have a mind of your own, or like you kind of do what the society tells you. In medicine, you do what your attendings tell you. And if you think a little bit differently, you're kind of shunned. So then you shut off all of the sensations that your body is telling you. And then for me, I crashed. I mean, I went through a period of insomnia because my body was literally, I didn't recognize it at the time, but my body was like, you're not in alignment. And it was literally screaming at me to be, and not letting me sleep, because I wasn't in alignment with what I believed, my actions, my thoughts, and everything. And so if you listen, the body sensations are huge clues to what you need to do.
Incredible. I mean, it is, once again, there's so much evidence of how this is just, it's been, like you're saying, we've neglected it for so many reasons. And we're not here to criticize the cultural ways of doing it, the ways that we've been raised, what education has done. What we're here to do is to be aware
Yeah.
of a much more different reality that is, as you said, screaming
Hmm.
at us in ways that we are not necessarily connecting the dots. In your case, might have been insomnia. It could be dissatisfaction with the professional life. In some cases, it could be women who cannot get pregnant.
Right.
I
Right.
could go
It'll
on
show up
with
in any way. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I go down the list of things that, as a clinician, now the doctor in me speaking, I've been able to see with imaging. I can't
Yes.
think to
Yeah.
how many people I would be, women, I would be doing what's called a hysterosalpingogram, a very kind of weird word for saying looking at the uterus and the fallopian tubes to make sure that everything is open, that everything anatomically seems right for the woman to be completely fertile.
Hmm.
And seeing in front of me the first set of images of a woman who is in complete stress because it's real-time imaging, and then stopping the procedure, telling my people to leave the room as I have a
Hmm.
conversation with the woman, and then unleashing a cascade of emotions that were there by asking some questions, very heart to heart, and then all of this emotional release happening, a lot of different reasons. Working with that in the moment, spending 15, 20 minutes to really work with that and said, are you open to doing the exam again?
Hmm.
Which is uncomfortable for the women who may
Right.
know about this procedure, can be
Yeah.
physically uncomfortable for them. And then for them to say, yes, go ahead and do it again. And then having the privilege of doing the procedure for a second time, and now the anatomy being fully seen, everything fully open with the
Yeah.
dye, special dye that we use with x-rays to be able to see everything. And this woman was perfectly, in perfect shape anatomically. I can't say how many times I can honestly say that I've seen that, I've witnessed it, where there was really nothing wrong in that sense, but the body was
Yeah.
carrying so much energy that
Hmm.
it could impact smooth muscle at that anatomical level to basically say, I am not right, I am not in a state of receiving, there's no way I'm going to get pregnant under this state.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I can go on.
Yeah, I mean, like to your point, like with the nervous system stuff, we're mammals, and so we're wired for safety and threat. And even though we're not in the jungle anymore, we still are very much wired like that. And I think that's something that we forget as human beings, that we might think we're physically safe, but subconsciously there might be some stuff going on that can keep, on an anatomical level, show up.
No question.
Yeah.
Aarti, can you share with us? So you come into GL28 with your expectations and the things that are happening and so on. What happened along the way,
Yeah.
and where are you now? Because you are a beaming human and woman, and I know that this is not just because we're just doing this conversation. I can feel it as I'm talking to you live right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess one thing that came up during it that I wasn't expecting, and it was you held space for me so beautifully, was on the heel seat, and I was sharing, like how I feel like, wow, I'm handling things much, better. I had a family emergency during the time of GL28. And so I wasn't able to participate to the full level that I wanted to, but that's okay. I still did the 10 things and, the magic rock moment and stuff. And so I was sharing with a friend that I'm like, oh gosh, I'm handling this so much better than I would have before. And like, I was so proud of myself and excited about it. And I didn't realize what I was doing, like when I shared it with a friend, because it was met with, well, like it was like dismissed, like that, I had evolved or anything like that. And I felt like I was like, come on, like, can't you see the change in me? And you were like, you in a very eloquent, safe way, you were like, it was still me seeking validation. And because I
Mm,
had felt my body tense up, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to come up during this time. So it was really a nice awareness building of something that I didn't see myself.
mm.
Yeah.
And tell me, you've been now through the first cycle that you've done.
Yeah.
Um, the doctor in you, the skeptic in you, that resonates with the skeptic in me,
Uh-huh.
um, from all of these things, had a very different experience of something that, as I can intuitively sense, connected and truly validated with some truths that have been running within you for a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
Speak to that, if you would, please.
Absolutely. I think it's just been since childhood. You come into this world, and, I'm a kid of immigrant parents. And so it's like you work hard and you make your space in the world, and then you'll be safe. And so this was kind of the theme in the Indian culture too. It's like you're always like you're a good kid or you're a trouble kid, like you want to be on the good side. Like then you've got validation from your parents. You're safe then. Same thing with like, any uncle or auntie in the community. Like, there's always like this, oh, they're the good kids. Like you get the acceptance. And then, I had very people pleasing tendencies as childhood because I didn't want to stick out from like my American, um, school colleagues. And so it was like, oh, if I'm overly nice, then I'm not going to stick out and I'll be fine and safe. But that was like just a running theme, in medicine, you're like, I'm going to work hard and all this. And, it got me like I was chief resident and all this stuff. But I was like, now looking back, I'm like, that is all people pleasing. And it's still in me, even though I feel like I had done a lot to evolve it.
Mm.
It still came up in this journey.
Wow, that's really powerful. For all of you watching, you have been watching Alive Partner TV, and today we are on a special edition of the Human Power Series, the HPS. I have been honored today to be in a conversation with a colleague of mine, Dr. Aarti Soorya, who's a classically trained physician. And she has been sharing a lot about her life journey in a really vulnerable way, which is so unpleasant for doctors. And I'm just so humble and so honored that she is here with us because it really validates for me something which is I believe in the medical class across the planet. And I believe that we come to it, most of us, with the best intentions to really support people's journeys in healing. We really genuinely care. And this conversation has not been anything less, but really showcasing that. Arti, as we approach the end of this conversation, which I would not, like to actually end because it's been
I
so
feel like
fun.
I could talk to you
We,
forever.
we could do it for hours.
Yeah.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface of the iceberg here. But one of the things that, and I'll say it humbly and vulnerably, that is difficult to convey in my experience to others about the work that we do is what is this or who is it
Mhm.
for, right? Because people think of it maybe, well, healing work, what is that all about? It's just like somebody, throwing some tarot cards in front of you, or is there some light coming out of him and doing something for you? And I like to say it's none of that. It's really my willingness to meet the depth of me, the challenges in me, all
Mhm.
the feelings within me,
Yeah.
and not putting any ounce of energy into concealing my human
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
It's what ultimately allows others to find in me or in you or whoever does that a mirror for them to tap into the greatness that lives within them.
Yes. Yeah.
And you've heard me say it, this has nothing to do with me. It's a co-creation with the people
Yeah.
that have come from all over the world to be part of our community, which is an honor.
Yeah.
Yes, I am responsible for keeping it safe and doing everything I can to honor without judgment all the things that we come to heal and to transform and to learn and to grow from if we want to actually have the experience be that. Um, how would you describe to others who are not acquainted with what this kind of work is, uh, so that really they don't feel intimidated and
Mhm.
they find it approachable and friendly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I'll use an analogy that they use in yoga nidra is like you're learning to ride the waves of the ocean without so that you can rest is actually the ocean beneath it and be able to just watch what's coming and going without it derailing you. So what you're being able to do is just open your container to experience all of life without fear.
That's so powerfully said. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Because it really is not intimidating. I think, you know, not a thought. I know from having done this for so long, it's seemingly very intimidating in the beginning, and we shield the intimidation by the skepticism. We're like, I
Yeah.
don't see what that is like. I've done that before.
Yeah.
And then because we allow that to actually be in the space
Yeah.
without judgment, then it invites the possibility of, well, let me try that in a different way, right? There's no expectation from me to the community members. You have to do this or else I'm your guru or else.
No,
It's never been like
nothing.
that. And it will never be. Um, who would you say, being in the Alive Partner community, and now as we're just on the eve of opening for the first time a truly social media free hosting platform,
Mhm.
um, because I recognize that the safer the container is, the less elements that can potentially impart any fear upon being on the spotlight in a safe way,
Yeah.
the more we accelerate the healing process and the process of breaking through what I call in my community being afflicted with the invisible human virus, the IHV.
Yeah.
Um, who would you say, Arti, in your experience, this should be for or this is for?
I think anyone who is curious about learning more about themselves or wanting has that itch to like evolve out of the life that they're in. Like if they're um like disappointed with anything or whatever, it's just a way to start shifting because nothing in your life will shift unless you shift. And so if you have that inkling or that will to do that, it's for you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
We have many conversation with my colleague and esteemed community member in the Alive Partner community, Dr. Aarti Soorya. Aarti, I am sure that as people have been listening and watching you share with such a powerful way of being and such vulnerability, especially with your journey, they're very likely wanting to find out more about you and the work that you're doing. So could you please share with us how can they find about your work? Where can they find you? Because I'm sure that some people will be really interested in reaching out to you and getting this kind of support from a physician that sees more than just one track.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love educating on Instagram. So I'm on Dr. Surya at Instagram and then also Facebook. I'm Aarti Soorya MD there. So come say hello. um,
Awesome.
and like, thank you for just being such a leader in this field and giving physicians like me hope that there is a path and you can do it, and it's all your own inner guidance, like leading the way. So
What a privilege and what an honor to have you here today. I want to acknowledge you publicly in this episode for your courage, not just as a physician, as a woman, because we know that we're still in an era where there's a lot of stigmas around things like this. And I have seen it in the world of medicine as a man. And I have incredible respect when somebody who spent a lot of time doing one particular thing has really honored and being in service to the calling that is within to empower what your education has gifted you with.
mhm.
That is something that gives me, as a fellow physician and as a human being, tremendous amount of hope for what's possible for decades and centuries to come as we continue to evolve in reclaiming ourselves in the infinite wisdom that really resides in the field of possibilities that we live in. And the more aware that we become, the more conscious, and the more we tap into consciousness that we do, the more we start to embrace other things that seemingly are quackery, or things that don't work, or things that really have no place in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's something that is, it's beautiful, it's powerful, and very humbling to witness and be walking side by side with you as well. So
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for being here. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today in this amazing conversation and witnessing such generosity, courage, and vulnerability from Dr. Aarti Soorya. You can see the links below to where you can find her information and find her online. So if you feel as though you're resonating with her message and would like to seek her support in the work that she does, I invite you to do so. It's always healing in itself to find that there's others doing work that are different from mine, but they're aligned in terms of what they're doing and pursuing, which is to be in service to human beings, and that is worth promoting, and it's worth saying yes to. So thank you so much again for being here with us, Aarti, and thank you so much for being here with us in the Human Power series in Life Partner TV. If you are new to us, welcome to our community. Don't forget to like this and follow us so you can continue to receive the content that we share with all of you every single week. And as I said in the beginning, and I'll say it again, if this resonated with you, share it with others that you care about in your life, because in them being able to be exposed to this material that you have kindly shared with them, you may be the catalyst who's actually bringing change into their lives. I am Dr. Mario Torres Leon. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you on our next episode of the Ally Partner TV in the Human Power series. So long.